really the theme of our presentation is marketing your DPF cleaning business when the competition endorses only one type of cleaning. So we've got a great panel. We're going to get into this topic, and really, I think we're going to be able to provide you with some things to think about and some actionable things that you can do to make your business better. So by way of introduction to our panel, I'd like to start by introducing Steve Hoke. Now, Steve is the president of Diesel Emission Service. He has worked in his family business since the mid-1980s, and he has been specializing in diesel emission systems since 2006. You may recognize some of their brands, which include Redline Emissions products and the Filter Therm cleaning machines. Steve, welcome to our discussion today.
Thank you, Jamie. Pleasure to be here, and welcome to all our NARSA and IDEA members as we work to build the IDEA brand and bring a lot more people into the mix.
Awesome. So let's move on to our other panelist members. Scott Boltz is the Vice President of Marketing at Global Emission Systems. They sell the DPF X Fit line of aftermarket after-treatment products. Scott, welcome to our panel.
Hey, Jamie, thanks, man. I'm glad to be here. I also echo what Steve said. The ability to speak to the NARSA members and the IDEA members is going to be fantastic.
Awesome. Jeremy Anderson is the National Sales Manager with FSX Equipment. He has worked in the diesel exhaust after treatment industry for over 12 years. His expertise includes best practices for maintaining DPF, DOC, and SCRs. Jeremy, welcome to our panel.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's been an interesting time for the industry. We've gone through a lot, and one of the things that is constantly at the forefront of business owners' minds is how do we successfully defend against competitors? How do we share the right message? How do we improve our business? And so today I'd like to start off our conversation, because really, like, the theme of what we're talking about is how we market our DPF cleaning business when competitors are putting out messages that there's only one type of cleaning that should be used. I thought what we could do is we could first of all break down the different types of cleanings. So Jeremy, walk us through what pneumatic cleaning is all about.
Okay. So pneumatic cleaning is typically using air, and it's the most popular approach that you find out there. It's often referred to as a stage one cleaning or a step one. And essentially, there's about 4 different methods for pneumatic air cleaning. You've got your automated or manual approach. You've got your pulse or constant air approach. You've got your visible or non-visible cleaning approach. And then you've got your bidirectional, which is cleaning both ends of the filter. And you've also got your one-sided or one-end cleaning approach. Obviously, the most effective and most popular approaches are, number one, an automated cleaning, especially when you want to get that throughput out and get the customer taken care of as quickly as possible by also reducing your labor costs. The other aspect would be constant air. The downside of that, however, is you're going to need a larger air compressor and more infrastructure. Bidirectional air scanning is more popular than one-sided approach because you're attacking the ash head on in the same direction it went in, and that's effective at breaking up and loosening the ash and getting most of it, or if not all of it, out. And then the visible cleaning process is very important so that you know when the DPF is being cleaned. Cleaning a DPF like baking a cake, we often like to say, because everyone loads differently, and they have a different amount of miles on it, different load factor, different idling time. And so the ash will load differently. So whatever method is used, it's important to test those results by doing a pin drop test to see how much you've removed, and also doing a flow test and possibly weighing the filter before and after.
Okay, Jeremy, thank you so much for providing us with that overview. Steve, let's talk about thermal. Can you give us a similar overview?
Yeah, sure. So thermal really is just in conjunction with the pneumatic cleaning. Can be used with any type of cleaning. The industry's heard the term bake and blow for many, many years. And where it really kind of set the tone for retrofit or for cleaning was in the retrofit market, where we were putting a DPF system on a pre-07 truck. There was no means to do an onboard regeneration. So therefore, really, if it was a sticky wet filter with soot, you're not just going to blow it out. So you need to bake it, oxidize the soot. And then the air, the blow side, there's lots of different ways to blow a filter out. Some are better than others. It's just describing that it's using air to remove the ash. So thermal did the soot or oxidize the soot, and then the air removes the ash.
Okay, so let's move then to another totally other kind of cleaning, which would be, I guess, what we call wet cleaning. Steve, with your FilterTherm brand, you definitely have a lot of experience with this. Walk us through that type of cleaning.
Yeah, so the aqueous process is a fairly new process. When I say new, it really relied on the truck to be doing onboard regenerations. I mean, you're not really gonna a sticky, wet, sooty filter. You're not gonna just stick in an aqueous system, and it's not just gonna flush it out. It takes more than just water. There are surfactants, there are flocculants, there are different types of ways to accomplish this. Again, the pros and cons with a fleet wanting to do faster services, they can do onboard regeneration. I don't believe that it's always necessary, but they can. The turnaround time is a lot quicker with aqueous because we're not waiting that 10-hour, 20-hour overnight baking cycle. There's some other benefits, which would be like in the light duty market or odd shaped stuff we're not used to seeing in the heavy duty truck market with a canned filter with inlet and outlet hats. So the shop wouldn't have to cut them apart. They could actually adapt to it and flush it out with water.
Okay, and Jeremy, there's also ultrasonic or chemical cleaning. Could you provide us with a little bit of background on that style of cleaning?
Yeah, typically you find the chemical and ultrasonic cleaning in an OEM reconditioning program where you can control the cores and you have an exchange program set up and you're selling that filter under warranty and you're backing that filter as practically a brand new filter. This is popular with the OEMs and the large reconditioning programs because of the costs and complexities of doing it that way. The turnaround time is not very quickly in this realm. However, there are machines out there that are using a stage 3 wet cleaning chemical process as a first step. Some of the challenges that presents is when you add water or chemicals to the soot, you can create a sludgy mess, and also you got a little bit additional time because that filter needs to be dried. These processes, there are some very successful ones out there, depending on the chemicals, but those chemicals are typically proprietary and they have to go through a series of tests to make sure that they don't damage the platinum or palladium or rhodium wash coat that is affecting the catalytic function and performance of the DPF. So you have to be very careful with the chemicals and make sure they're OEM approved. And you also have to invest a great deal amount of money if you want to go into that stage 3 cleaning. What we find is most filters, probably 90 to 95% of all the filters out there that need to be cleaned and they're not breached or cracked will be renewed after a stage 1 and stage 2 cleaning and be able to get back out on the market, back into service.
Okay, so I purposely waited until now to mention this. We've now covered very briefly the different cleaning processes. And as you can tell, there's so much to that process. And if you have specific questions for what we've talked about so far or what we're going to talk about for the rest of the conversation, by all means, go ahead and use the chat and ask the questions. We'll do our best to answer them throughout the presentation. And also we will have a bit of Q&A at the end of the presentation. So I want to open now to more of roundtable style discussion, because as we've just demonstrated, there's many different ways to go about DPF cleaning. And Yet there seems to be a problem in the industry with certain companies saying that there's really only one type of cleaning equipment or one way to do it. And I'd like to talk about that problem regarding competition, common misconceptions. So I'm going to open it up to the panel. Just raise your hand if you want to speak and I'll call on you. How do we effectively defend against those kinds of competitors and that strategy as a DPF cleaning facility ourselves? Who's going to be the brave one to go first on the panel?
Mr. Boltz.
Okay, Mr. Boltz, we haven't heard from you yet. You're up, my friend.
No, I don't feel that I'm necessarily qualified to speak about that. In the function of my job and what I do for a living, I have the great benefit and blessing of being able to visit, nearly every cleaning operation in the United States and Canada. And so what I typically see is that it's the net effect that matters. And so is the filter clean? Is the wash coat retained? Is the maximum amount of platinum retained in the DPF? And do you achieve the flow rates that get near as possible to the OEM standards? And so I'm not so concerned in the cleaning process of how it's done. I'm more concerned about the net result. And so,
sorry, Scott, go ahead.
No, I can close with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great comment on Scott's part. The reality is we can all tout that our system's better, our machine's prettier, our whatever. At the end of the day, when we talk about flow rates, because Corning, there's less than 4 manufacturers, Scott, of substrates in North America. Mm-hmm. There's the substrates themselves are, yes, none of us have machines that can make these substrates, a 12-inch diameter with 2,800 cells and know everything about them, the cell density, and there's reasons for them. But at the end of the day, we all know their flow numbers when they're new. We all know their flow numbers once they've been coated, and we should know the weights. And therefore, at the end of the day, we should be able to know if we've cleaned a filter within a percentage of the day it was new. And that's where, back to some of the training we've done with NARSA before, is how to have a repetitive DPF cleaning program, really, no matter what brand or type of equipment you have. And yes, there are some stuff that work better than others. In other applications, there's ones that can process 3 times as many as others. But at the end of the day, you should be willing to demonstrate to your customer what it started when you got it, what it is when you're giving it back to them, as far as flow rates, as far as weights. So there's a high level of confidence that you are giving them something back as close to new as possible.
Indeed, Steve. And what I would add to that is that, from the fleet's perspective, and, the people that we're trying to serve, they should have the target of about 1 million miles per filter, right? Like, that should be the target. Now, is it achievable? It depends on the truck and depends on the driver and the application and so many other things. But, we want to get them turning their filters and getting them cleaned effectively and correctly, so that they can elongate the life of that product.
I understand that's lifespan of the unit, not for cleaning segments.
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's my point. I don't care how many times it's cleaned in that lifespan, but so we have to preserve the ability of that filter and the DOC to be able to successfully regenerate less often in shorter time intervals.
So, Jeremy, I'm kind of curious, though, how did we get here with so much misinformation in the marketplace? Like, I get why in the mid 2000s, and when this first was really instituted, there was a lot of uphill challenges. But I mean, we're talking 15 years later, and we're having a roundtable discussion about some competitors putting out this misinformation about only one cleaning process. Like, how did we get to 2021 and we're still talking about this?
Well, I think it begins with what the OEMs knew about this product to begin with. The learning curve was very steep, and they thought that the filters would last a lot longer on the trucks. They also bought off on their own type of cleaning style or method. And a lot of OEMs published that. Some of them stayed far away from recommending any product. Some of them went and did their own thing and recommended their own way of for example, a reconditioning exchange program is the only method, and it's an internal program where they recommend that you only do that to preserve your warranty. There was a lot of different cleaning companies that came out with different machines that had various different approaches. So I think 15 years later now, the knowledge now has been gathered on how to maintain these properly. And I think one of the biggest things that we have learned in the industry is you have to maintain the after treatment system like you do with oil and tires. The preventative maintenance schedule, of course, is different, but there is a preventative maintenance schedule, and it's far sooner than the OEM recommendations for maintaining that filter. And if you have a severe duty, or if you have a long haul, or if you have a stop and go in regional, talking about your fleet trucks now, those are all going to need different preventative maintenance schedules. And one of the biggest misconceptions out there in the industry is I can go 2, 3, 4, 500,000 miles without maintaining my DPF. Actually, couldn't be further from the truth.
So I can see from the fleet's perspective, the owner operator's perspective, you have this information coming from the OE. You know, they've been conditioned to trust that, especially when it comes to anything to do with that diesel engine. Steve, how as an aftermarket or a DPF cleaning facility do we do a better job of, first of all, defending against that messaging, and second of all, educating our customers?
So in my thought, because we have 5 DPF cleaning locations, and in different regions, we have a different approach. It comes down to communication. It comes down to training your customer. It comes down to there are some markets that price is king. We just closed a facility in Ontario, California, because price meant more to the customer base short term than longevity and training and proactive, and it just was a business decision to change. But the day of expecting people to drop filters off at your location, and you just stand there and service them and give them back is gone. In my opinion, you've got to educate. You've got to show. You've got to not be afraid, embarrassed, or whatever your reasoning to not invite your customers in to see your equipment, to see your process, to see your documentation, to see how you check them, because they're entrusting you with, they're not trusting you with a diesel engine to in-frame it, but they're entrusting you with a $4,000 to $5,000 item, just hypothetically, or more, to be their base of knowledge. And you know, if you tell a customer, look, if with documentation, I'm jumping around a little bit, but you give a customer back their filter, it should have before, after, it should have weights, it should have everything, so they know what it what it was when they delivered it, what it is when they picked it up. And then in another 100,000 miles, or if it's sooner and it comes back, it should be, all this data should always be telltale signs of what's going on with my mileage as far as duty cycle. There's a lot of blank statements in our industry. Like in the retrofit side, they pretty much said, you're going to clean your filter every year. Well, we tell school systems that travel 4,000 to 10,000 miles a year, that's absolutely a waste of money. We don't need to do that. We can spread that out. But then it became the school districts were telling some of our long haul customers, well, they only have us do it a couple of years. So it became, the customers were thinking in a certain segment that we're trying to push them for extra cleanings, which we're not. Every cycle, every vehicle is different. And the relationship side of the business has to drive what the service interval is and what the education to the customer is.
Right. Well, we have an opportunity to add some education today. Brian asked the question, what type of chemicals are being used in the cleaning process mentioned when we talked about ultrasonic? Jeremy, could you help us with that?
Well, that is, we have our own proprietary chemicals that we have come up with after years and years of research and development. I'm not privy to reveal that information, but a lot of chemicals that you'll see out there that are poured in a wet cleaning process, poured into the filter before, as a pre-treatment, before the process is started, is simply most of the time a surfactant, which really doesn't do anything to breaking up and loosening the ash. It essentially breaks up and loosens breaks down the soot, which turns into a sludge, and it's more beneficial for the waste tank or the collection filtration system after the DPF has gone through the process than it is for the DPF itself. There are also some other spray-in chemicals that I have found to be very harmful to the after treatment system, that claim that you can spray this fluid into the DPF while the after treatment system is still installed on the truck. And those have been known to cause damage to the DPF and cause some melting and cracking. So you have to do your research. You have to be very careful. But I'm not aware of any chemicals that are OEM approved that you can find a recipe for it that's out there. But you can certainly buy machines out there and processes that will allow you to have access to that proprietary chemical that can be used for cleaning up the catalyst as well as breaking down the ash.
Okay, thank you for answering that, Jeremy. So Scott, when you're listening to all of this and you're thinking about your customers and their experience, this education process, not only internally, but also then turning that externally, is that what you've seen works the best in defense against maybe misinformation or marketing that is perhaps not 100% accurate?
The companies that we deal with that are probably the best at satisfying their customers' needs take a multi-pronged approach. There's no one answer. And so anyone who claims that there's one way or the highway, not necessarily true. It depends on the filter. It depends on the application. It depends on the fleet. A garbage truck is very much different than an over-the-road truck. And so, they can achieve those regeneration temperatures if their system is operating as it should. And so, again, the things that I've seen while out in the world and trying to help fleets solve their problems is that there is not one singular answer, that there's multiple answers, and it's relative to the application.
Okay, thank you very much. So, we don't want to just talk about problems or just talk about being defensive in our business strategies. We also want to talk about being proactive and finding ways to expand and grow our businesses, regardless of the location we're in or what part of the industry we are part of. So I think I'd like to shift the conversation now to, we've got this opportunity where we've got these great knowledgeable people all together, and that doesn't happen very often. And so we have this opportunity now to provide the members listening with some of the things that we've seen to be effective in growing your business, in expanding, and not just being in that defensive stance, but actually being proactive. So Scott, let's start from the top. What is the thing that you recommend to your clients that where they should start when they want to think about moving to that proactive growth model that you've seen work the best?
Yeah, we've talked in the past about the school of thought around Simon Sinek, which is the concept of starting with why, and I'm a big advocate of that. You'll see companies that get a good idea and they have some capital, they purchase some equipment, and they go out in the market and they start establishing a customer base, and they achieve a certain level of success that starts to taper off. And the reason why it tapers off is that, they've met the capacity of their system. And so one of the things that I try to ask, the best customers that we do have is, why do you do what you do? Why do people do business with you? Why is it that you exist? And if you haven't done the homework in advance, that's a hard question to ask, right? You have to be able to articulate it. And so when you see a company go through that growth curve, and then the next kick is when they figure out why they do what they do. And if you're coming from a place as a company where I'm legitimately trying to make a living off of helping people solve their problems, you have to understand that. You have to be able to articulate it as it fits to your particular business. So within DPF cleaning companies, it's very clear. And one of the things about a DPF in an after treatment system in general is it's a bit of a canary in the coal mine. So if you're having issues upstream, it's gonna represent itself in your DPF. So when I get a filter that's got issues, that's come off a truck for a reason, there's a reason. And that reason is rarely the filter itself. It's usually something else. And so what I tried to work with our best accounts on is to help their customers identify those problems upstream so that they spend less money over the long haul. You know, it comes down to often cost per mile. And if you do cost per mile calculations, you'll find that if I do my preventive maintenance, as Jeremy mentioned earlier, the net cost overall in your after treatment system as your fleet overall, your entire fleet goes down.
Yes. Now, Steve, I was hoping that you could share your experience going through this process, because I know at Redline Emissions Products, you recently changed your why and you've made that very public. Could you just talk to us about how that has impacted your ability to market your company?
Sure. 4 years ago, when we built the brand or started the brand Redline Emissions Products, it was drive cleaner, drive longer, and it slipped off the tongue. We had a little meeting, and no one really cared, right? It was just a thing to put on a shirt, and truckers would see it, and all right, I can drive longer if I buy their parts. And we went on, and the brand has done very well. Probably, I'm going to feel bad, maybe last fall, we met with a very caring consulting person and pretty much asked us, what does that mean? Why do you even have the brand? I mean, forget you're here to make a profit or whatever, but what is the brand for? Because the brand to us is not just a bunch of parts in a box. It's the relationship Wayne Cochran and myself and my staff here have with, as Scott says, his best clients. Scott does it for all of his clients, but it's the same thing. We become more than just a phone number to call when they need something. We become a reference, a partner. We're engaged. There are some shops that we do business with that don't have marketing staff, that don't have the stuff that we have, that we've had to build through the years to get where we're at. And it's like, now we want to share that with them to help them grow their business. Of course, I don't want to do it with people that are right across the street from my locations. But it's as a, you know, when I hear that one of our distributors landed a big account, I get just as excited for them as I do for us. I mean, it's a whole big picture. So when we changed to diesel emission systems made easy, it tied in our tech side. We do training classes with diesel laptop. We have a training facility here that we teach diesel laptops curriculum. It has been a great partnership, and it changed our whole plan on why we do what we do. And I'm not telling our NARSA members out there to share everything with all their competitors, but you got to make sure why you're doing what you're doing. And, you know, we always say we're in the relationship business. You're right, we are. But there has to be more than just the relationship. You've got to deliver when you say you got to. I mean, the normal business stuff. So that's my and to tell you the truth, since we made that change, when we stare at our literature or talk about our product, it's changed us inside, because behind the scenes, behind the brand is, there's 37 people here where I'm at, 16 of them work for that brand. And those people probably, not the shipping guys and stuff, but the people that wear the shirts that say that, it means something to them, because they know that they're helping solve problems or helping our dealers become closer to us. Because if a shop only sells the DPF cleaning, if I'm a pickup and delivery shop, and your competitor across town has seminars, has training, has reports, digital, whatever, has more to offer, and we're assuming that you're both doing a good job on the filter cleaning side, he's going to get all the business, because customers want to be engaged. Customers want to know, all right, I picked up my DPF. You showed that I didn't lose as much weight of the ash, or the flow's a touch higher. Is it still okay? And if you don't have those answers, you're not the expert. They're going to go find someone else that can give them those answers. And I think the big 360 that we have made as a company, because that's one brand, but now it's triggered our other company and brand to say, we need to be the voice of reason. We don't know everything, but we need to be the one trying to help our people get through, or our customers, our people that keep us in business, every bit of knowledge we can to make their uptime, their downtime less, their uptime more, whatever you want to do. But
Right.
It's made a big difference in our team.
Thank you for sharing your personal experience. So, Jeremy, once a company gets that in place, they understand why they're in business, there's got to be some practical things that they can do. So what do you recommend as a practical step of how to then go into the marketplace? So you've got this big why now, you understand why you're in business. What do you do next?
Yeah, well, before you even consider purchasing DPF cleaning equipment, we recommend that you do some market research, some due diligence in your area. And one approach is to go out to your local fleets, being public and private fleets, and ask them what they're doing. Ask them if they're happy with the service that they're getting, with the turnaround time and the quality of the DPF cleaning equipment, or the cleaning service. Ask them if they're getting reports back, and does that report give a health condition of the DPF? Does it give a pre and post test? Does it give a pass or fail, or go or no go? Does it give a condition report? Were there cracks in the filter? Is the filter melted? How is the flow afterwards? And was it pin gauged? Was it weighed? You know, things like this. You want to find out from your fleets how many trucks they have and how much they're paying. You don't want to necessarily go out there and compete on price. You want to compete on quality. You want to compete on turnaround time. And then you ask your fleets, will you be willing to try us out if we enter the DPF cleaning business? You might have a better relationship with them and you're not in the DPF cleaning business yet. They might want to go with you. They might be closer in proximity geographically to you. They might be waiting 2 or 3 or 4 days to get their DPFs back. You might be able to provide a better turnaround time. Lead time, turnaround time is critical in this industry. Downtime is what it's often referred to. And if you can promise a 28 or 24 or 48 hour turnaround time to your customers, they might be willing to go with you because their filter might be taking 3 or 4 days to get back. Once you identify the number of potential customers in your area, you want to count them up. And if you can get to approximately 150 or 200 trucks, that's a good starting point, because that'll represent your return on investment within a year, or maybe a little less, maybe a little longer. And then once you get the equipment, you want to take pictures of the machines. You want to put them on your website. You want to develop flyers. You want to spread the word to everybody. You want to put a banner on the side of your building. You want to put it on your voicemail and your hold time music, and announce it to the world, and make sure that your prices are sustained. If you have high quality equipment, you can charge for that, and you're doing a high quality service. You're doing quicker downtime, quicker turnaround time. Don't sell yourself short and compete on price.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It sounds to me that once you've gone through that market research and you're ready to go to market, it's really important to focus on your own backyard before you start to go too far afield. How important actually is that?
Well, you want to be able to probably focus in on the 50 to 100 miles if you're going to do a pickup and delivery service, and then branch out from there. But 50 to 100 miles is a good starting point.
That makes sense. And for those of you that's been selling the cleaning equipment, how long of a curve is it to really get that expertise and get up to speed as a cleaning facility? I know in heavy duty parts, when I started, and one of my mentors said, it's like 6 months before they're even useful to me, and it might be 2 years before the person is really able to stand on their own 2 feet behind a parts counter. So like with DPF cleaning, what's that trajectory? Maybe Steve, you could answer that.
Sure. I mean, we have an internal training program for new hires, and it's basically they go through a full after treatment, one of our diesel laptops classes, just to understand the systems, understand what actually puts the schmutz or whatever into the filter, and the basics, right? You should be able, when a filter comes out of the back of a truck, let's black, we don't waste time, right? So there's stuff we teach them in our own class. Really the learning curve is short. It's within a week. I trust, because the same thing, we're also looking at data, and our side of service manager signs off on all of them anyway. So he's looking at data before and after in our electronic deal. I think the things that's just repetitiveness and touching a filter, looking at flanges, looking at the bungs. I mean, I didn't realize up until a couple of years ago that we never even ran taps in the bungs. It's like, what do you mean? We have the filter here. Why aren't we doing that? It takes 30 seconds that could catch a problem while the truck's already down, or solve a problem when they go back together. So it was, it was another thing that we thought we knew everything. And honestly, we've cleaned probably 60,000 plus filters. And we still learn stuff every now and then.
Right. So continuous improvement. Scott, when you get to the place where you've done your homework, you've got your why, you've built your base of business, what have you seen to be the most effective for growth beyond that?
Mute.
Oh, you're still on mute, my friend.
My apologies. Sorry about that. So once a company ingrains that into their culture, it amplifies. So you want a force multiplier in your marketing. And so it's one thing for an individual, the president of a company, for instance, to believe what he believes and goes out and amplifies that. But when everyone in your organization is singing from the same hymnal, to say, once everybody's on board with the same thing, the amplification is not linear, it's exponential. And so your customers have a sense of that. Your customers see that you're serious about what you believe and how you're going to accomplish that mission. And so once that idea is pushed into the entire organization, the amplification is awesome. And you see that through the marketing, you see that through their interaction with the customers, you see that with everybody in the organization, so.
Yeah. That's been my experience too. And I've seen that repeated in different geographic areas around the US. It's not really dependent on that. It's more dependent on the company, the people, and whether or not they execute on that properly. Now, we kind of started off talking about misinformation. We talked about maybe some things that other competitors are marketing and it's not true. Steve, there's also the issue of our own internal willingness to be part of something larger to support the industry. When it comes to sharing information, today we've got people on this panel. You guys are competing in the marketplace against each other in one capacity or another, and yet you were willing to come and talk about this for the benefit of the NARSA group. Why is that so important, and how can we get people to see this from a different perspective?
I will bring up two different stories or two different things. First of all, Jeremy and myself are competing on the equipment side. Scott and I do have brands that compete. We still have friendships. We still have Jeremy and Cole. We have dinner at Chicken and Waffles at a place in Atlanta whenever we're there. At dinner with Scott. First of all, you have to enjoy in this business. You should be a people person, right? It's a relationship business. I can have discussions with Scott on the market without going, I wonder if he's worried about or wonder if he's going to steal my customers, or I wonder who he was just with the other day. Of course, when he shows up with a Mount point radiator, I know where he's at. But the selfish days, the early days, when I entered our family business in 1987, and my father, who's a fantastic man, believed that every competitor was a rotten bastard, and we don't share, we don't talk, we don't do anything. And I totally disagreed with that, because when I came to work here, I became friends with a person that I did not know was our competitor. And then my dad found out that we were hanging out doing stuff. He's like, you can't see him. He's our competitor. And I'm like, who cares? You're like, you have to care. You have to hate them. You have to treat them like they're the enemy. That's how we win. That's how we dominate. And I'm like, I'm out of here. This ain't going to work. And it became, there's lots of scenarios that did that. But I've made my career of being more interested in the people than the sell. And it has done well. And I think that our NARSA members, again, I'm not trying to put anything in anybody's mouth. I've been to a lot of people's shops. I think the biggest thing that our NARSA members need to do is start at home and not be afraid to share your experience, not be afraid to show people your place, not be afraid of, I don't want to say failures, because no one likes failures, but my God, if you see I have the screen up high so you can't see all the crap on my desk from issues that we have in 6 locations. And no day is always easy, but you've always got to be willing to help someone. I talk to DPF cleaning shops across the country, actually, don't even buy product from me. They want my advice on something because they're getting ready to make an investment. And you know what? I'll spend just as much time with them as I will a person that just spent 100 grand with me. So the big picture has to change. And for us, it was a few years ago. It was longer than that, but yeah, you've got to be for the big picture. And when Mark Taylor took over the NARSA side as the executive director, and then they told me why they wanted to do the idea side on emissions, his biggest answer for me was, we want to educate everybody. We want to give them knowledge. And that to me went, I'm on board. There are competitors of ours that don't give a 2 cents about helping anybody in this business. They just want to sell stuff. And you know what? They won't end up on top. And I mean, for me, that's the biggest thing. I love what I do. I know Scott loves what he does. I know Jeremy loves what he does. We all kind of do stuff different. But at the end of the day, we're trying to make things better for everybody. So, yeah.
Jeremy, does this resonate with you? And if so, why?
Absolutely. I've really appreciated having a friendship with Steve and being invited to Chicken and Waffles in Atlanta at his favorite restaurant there. I'm salivating now just thinking about it. But those are good times, and I appreciate the whole NARSA organization, and I think that that's the theme of the collaboration and the friendship and the sharing of ideas that are very, very important in this industry, because at the end of the day, we all learn from each other. And I've learned something from Steve. Hopefully he's learned a few things from me. And we have continued to develop that relationship, even though we compete in certain markets. And that's okay. And I think that's kind of a newer way of doing business than our fathers taught us. And it's a better way of doing business.
So Scott, it's one thing to do this internally as part of a membership group like with NARSA, or just internally with people within the industry. It's another thing to become more transparent in the open market. But what benefits come from that transparency that you've observed?
Well, if you're looking inward, it makes you have to be square with yourself first. And so that transparency makes you accountable. And through that accountability, you find a better place. You find a sense of what you're doing that you can rely upon in the future. You know, I can't be misquoted because I know what I believe and I say what I believe. And when things come up, you know, there's always conflicts in business. There's always competition. There's always things that go sideways. There's mistakes, and there's bad stuff that happens. But at the end of the day, you know how to take care of those things because you filter everything through your why. And again, it gives you a great sense of purpose, and it gives you a great sense of if you know what you believe, then you can tell other people what you believe, and they can either resonate with it or not, and that's up to them. It's not up to us. But at the end of the day, hearkening back to what Jeremy you just said and what Steve also said, is that it doesn't really matter what it is that we do individually for a living, but it really comes down to, like, how do we promote the industry? How do we help it go forward? Through those actions, we actually improve ourselves.
Yeah, 100%. You know, Mark Taylor just commented that competition is healthy and makes all of us better. It's like playing sports and you get beat. If you are a true competitor, you go out and improve your game so you're better prepared for the next game. And that is so true. In some ways, business is a game, very much like sports. I will share with the group here. My viewpoint is unique because I work with so many different companies across our industry as a consultant, and with the work that I do at the Heavy Duty Parts Report. So from the manufacturers right down to the people providing repair services. And the one thing that I remind people about is their own buying habits. You know, when we are the seller, you know, it's sometimes difficult to think the way a buyer thinks. But think of the way things have changed over the last 15 years. The way people buy today, especially with complex sales, and certainly what we do qualifies as that. When they're looking for a new solution, the first thing anybody does is they Google it or they YouTube it, and they collect enough information they can feel relatively confident that they know what to do next. And then they engage someone in sales and basically say, verify my research. Is this the right application for me? Is this the right solution for me? So if you want to attract new customers, you need to make that information available. And I always recommend to build a library of content on your website, answering those common questions, providing people with the information they need, getting them in touch with why you're in business and how you provide a solution and how that solution impacts their customers. And by doing that and being really forthcoming and sharing that information, you don't actually lose business to competition. You have the opportunity to gain business from your competitors who don't do that. This is one of the, moving forward, this is one of the differentiation, elements that can be put into a business to make them stand head and shoulders above everyone else.
I agree.
Scott? Oh, Steve?
No, it's so true. Yeah.
Good. I like it when we agree. So I'd love to give the opportunity for those listening to ask the panel any questions you would like. By all means, use the chat function. One thing that we can kind of talk about here, just to kick off while we're waiting for questions to come in preparation for today's meeting, Jeremy, there was a spirited conversation about this. There was a lot of different ideas, and yet we are still able to come together and have this conversation. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think I told this story earlier to you guys. I am an avid salmon fisherman, and I love going out and doing all things seafood in the saltwater in my boat. And I have shopped at a sporting goods store that is local to me, that provides education, provides seminars, provides books and know-hows and maps, where to go and what gear to use. And I will go there and spend more before I go to the big box stores that moved in locally. And this small mom and pop shop, if you want to call it that, sporting goods store has been privately owned by a father, and now the son is running it. And they provide information on the internet. They provide videos on Facebook or YouTube, kind of like what you mentioned a little bit earlier. And they are cleaning up with the competition because they educate their customers, because they are the experts, because they share information, and they don't worry about maybe their competitors getting a hold of that same information and using it against them. And they have stayed in business, and that is what I see happening here. And I appreciate it. Like I said, I've learned a lot from these guys. I've learned a lot from NARSA. I've sat on another panel right next, shoulder to shoulder when we were meeting in person, and appreciate
the good old days.
The good old days. Appreciate everything that everyone has contributed. And so I guess it's given me a lot of change of mindset to do that way of sales. And I think, as you said, people look up on the internet to get instant information, and if they can't find you, then that's a problem.
Yeah, I totally agree. Steve, people remember what we say last. Just give us one thing that's going to help the members grow their revenue.
All right. So if you're a DPF cleaning shop, and you don't have to answer this out loud, when you hand back the filter to the customer, if you're not giving them a report, documentation, gaskets, clamps, upselling them parts, you are making a huge mistake. And let me tell you why. Two of my shops, we assume that all of our shops have done this forever. Two of our shops, revenue was always low. I just throw in some numbers. Revenue was always low. So one of our managers went there and watched them 30-something filters leave, shrunk wrap on the ends, cleaning report. He says to the manager, he says, how come you didn't sell them gas and clamps? Oh, they didn't ask for any. What do you mean they didn't ask for any? Yeah, I didn't ask for any, so I'm not going to sell them that. And so that store, we said, here's the deal. Every invoice better have the gaskets, better have the clamps, better have their documentation with a note that if they say they don't want them, not a problem, we'll remove them or take them in case your technician wants them. We'll take them back, no restocking fee. We'll pick them up, we'll do whatever, but I trust us. Your technician will want new stuff, and here's reasons why you should never use gaskets. You technically, some clamps you shouldn't reuse anyway because exhaust leaks. But that revenue of that one store went up almost $40,000 a month from upselling gaskets, clamps, sensors, obviously checking the bungs. And I'm not saying that because we sell parts. Scott sells parts. Jeremy sold. We all sell parts. But if you look at yourself right now as a DPF cleaning shop, if you're not doing that, do that. Keep records of it and send me a big smiley face or a thank you in 30 days, 45 days.
Yeah, you got to sell people what they need, not what they ask for. Scott, you were shaking your head pretty hard through that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's been kind of a theme of this whole conversation. You know, when Jeremy was talking, I was thinking about you have to add value, and that value has to be selfless, right? And through that action and through those efforts, you gain friends and business partners, and you know everything that Steve was saying. You know, again, as I said earlier, if you're having issues, if a fleet is having issues with their DPF, there's something else wrong, which is an opportunity to help them solve that problem. You don't want them to continually put a Band-Aid on the situation and continue to have these expensive failures. What if I could help you solve that problem? Well, I know a little bit about it. I gain nothing from it, right? It's counterintuitive. You know, if my mission in the world is to sell DPFs, but it's through that forthright effort in the market and the ability for you to connect with other people that means something.
Yes, and in the spirit of this, I will conclude by simply saying that the 4 people on your screen today are here for you. And if you want to reach out to any one of us, do so at any time to help you with the development of your business and to help you implement the things and suggestions that you've heard here today.